Welcome to the Real Estate Secrets Podcast for healthcare professionals, hosted by Austin Hare and Nathan Palmer, who together have over 2 decades of real estate knowledge and investing.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. We have a special guest today, Gary Bird. He is the founder and CEO of SMC. They started in 2008, and they specialize in helping DSO group practices grow. So, Gary, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having us today, Austin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, 2008, it's a long time. You guys have been doing this for over a decade now. How did you guys get started? Tell us a little bit about the story of, how you decided to found this organization and how it was growing.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually, we started in a down economy. 2008, if you remember, was the big downturn. I actually had a well-paying job, and I was much younger then. And so I said, hey, now's the time to start a business. And at the time, email marketing was really popular. It was just not a lot of people were doing it. And I started going door to door, signing up restaurants and all kinds of different businesses to help them grow by reaching back out to their customers. And over time, that developed into meeting different kinds of businesses. And eventually we bumped into a dentist. That dentist was able to go from doing about $90,000 a month. And over a span of about a year or two, they were able to grow to over $400,000 a month. And they told some of their friends. And eventually we split the company. I had a partner at the time. He took his half of the company and everything that was kind of non-dental. And then we continued on, and we had, I would say that was about 5 years ago. And we started to just add, dentists and group practices. And eventually a lot of those dentists started DSOs or started to expand. And that's been over the last couple years. And now during COVID, we've actually doubled in size, and our team's also doubled in size.
Wow.
So we here in this kind of weird upturn that we're experiencing, we kind of went 100% in once again, and we've been experiencing some massive growth, which has been awesome because that means our clients and our team has been experiencing growth as well.
Okay. And so let's backtrack a little bit. You said that you had a good paying job. You decided to switch. What were you doing prior to this? It sounded like, so 2008 was when you started going door to door. Is that what you're considering the start date?
Yep. I actually had I worked for a textile company. Are you familiar with that? They do mats and towels and things like that at restaurants or auto mechanic places. And I was doing that full time. It is a weird industry, but it's a very lucrative industry.
Okay. And growing up, were you entrepreneurial at all? Did you start like any side hustles, anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely was. I was always selling candy and doing different things like that. So I've always loved just getting out and doing new things and trying. I actually did mortgages for a couple years before I worked for the textile company. And I tried my hand at insurance. I tried a bunch of different things before we jumped into marketing.
So how old were you when you first tried your hand at making money for yourself?
Man, when I was pretty young. Actually, when I was must have been 7, 8. I started really getting out there, and I remember actually I won the competition for selling the most candy for Boy Scouts. So from an early age, I was always just getting out there and getting after it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because a lot of times you hear a story of just take Airbnb, for example, and it just seems like, oh man, this guy had an idea for an app and he had this stroke of genius, and then all of a sudden, bam, he's just super successful and he's a billionaire and he's so lucky, right? But really, when you look at the story and you see his life, he has a history of success, he has a track record of success. And I think that it can be intimidating, you know, like a lot of times I find myself looking at people like that and saying like, oh, well, look, now when you know his story, you realize, well, he started when he was like 5 and it's like, how are we ever going to catch up? But I think everybody has their own story too. You know, if you've achieved sort of any level of success, we all kind of started earlier than we thought. And it's really fascinating to see people's different paths that led them to where they are today.
Yeah, we all started somewhere, right? We don't all just start off with a company, and definitely a lot of different opportunities. And I believe that hard work really creates opportunity. If you work hard and put the time in and really try to grow, that opportunity will arise.
So what was it like, you know, when you first started? I mean, you said hard work. Were you putting in like 12-hour days? I mean, what did life look like?
Yeah, so we would do work all day, you know, go out there, chase accounts down, figure out. At the time, I was just learning about business, learning about how businesses operated. My main selling pitch was, we're going to make your slowest day your busiest day. And then they'd say, how are you going to do that? And we'd say, we're going to collect your clients' emails, and then we're going to email and communicate to them about things that we have going on during the week to get them to come back. And it worked really, really well. So we'd go out all day, collect those emails, data entry those emails. There was no electronic, you know, forms for people to fill out yet. We would have people, we would data entry those, we'd make the emails, and I would do that all at night. It was just me. And then we'd go out during the day and go hustle up some more accounts. So over time, we began to add team members and began to add services. Email kind of went away, obviously, and it's probably like there was a lot of different options, and it became electronic. You could pretty much do it yourself. But by then, we were jumping into social media and SEO and websites and those kind of things.
And what do you mean when you say email kind of went away?
Email. Well, so when I got started in email, there wasn't a lot of options to do email yourself. So this is right as like Constant Contacts came out, like right after that. But it was a lot of the clients that I had didn't know how to use it. There was actually a technology gap there. And again, now you can just go into a business, they take your email and electronically enter it in right there and put you in an auto drip campaign. There was no such thing as that back then. So.
Okay, so people are still using these techniques, but it just doesn't give you the competitive edge anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, now, back then we were seeing view rates on emails at 70-80% because there wasn't as many emails coming in. Now we're looking at 15%, 10%.
Yeah, I was going to say like a tenth of that.
Yeah.
Man. Okay, so so I think obviously email is still an important piece of it, like you said, but you've got to adapt and you've got to pivot. So when did you guys start kind of pivoting away? And I know you mentioned social media. What exactly did that look like?
Yeah. So we really, when we started working in dentistry, the main thing that we were able to help with was patient flow. And one of the biggest struggles that we noticed right away in the industry was consistent patient flow. So we had a lot of dentists that were successful, that knew how to treat their patients right, knew how to get patients to return, but they couldn't scale as fast as they wanted. So they want to bring on an associate or other team members, but they needed the patient flow to support it. So what we figured out how to do is provide that consistent patient flow through online marketing. And at that time, actually, the thing that actually gave us the big opportunity is a lot of people were just starting to quit Yellow Pages. So people would have a $5,000, $10,000 monthly budget with Yellow Pages, and they would say, hey, it's not bringing me the results that it used to. Let's try digital. So that's kind of where the budget got freed up to really be able to push the lead generation. And very quickly, we realized that there were some holes in how patient flow went through the office. The first place that we discovered that was on the phones. So what we did is we started to implement phone tracking and then phone coaching. And this is where we discovered that the average dentist loses 40 to 50% of their marketing new patients are lost on the phone right away. So that means if you're spending $1,000, every $1,000 that you spend, you're losing $400 to $500 of that on the phone first shot. And
what are the reasons for that?
Well, that's a great question. So the reason for that is the people who are at the front desk, typically in the dental office, if they do a really, really good job at the front desk, they usually get promoted. So there's usually a lot of turnover, moving people up the ladder, so to speak. That's number one. Number two, the front desk is actually, especially in a growing office, is asked to do a lot. They have to check people in, check people out. They're going to do insurance verification. They're going to, anytime somebody needs something, for the patient, as far as, again, on that checkout, check-in process, they're going to be the go-to. Plus, every time the phone rings, they need to answer it. So it's very, very easy to just cut those conversations short. And again, you don't need to lose that many new patients to really just drop down to that 60 to 50% range. So with a couple techniques and a little bit of accountability, we've seen dental offices consistently hit up into that 90, 92 is kind of the high side of that conversion rate, which makes all the difference in the world to actually converting good ROI when it comes to your marketing patients. The other thing that we also noticed was we saw really, really quickly that there was a need for internal tracking. So dentistry is really lacking in their practice management softwares. It's just the way the industry is right now. You can't get the data that you need a lot of time. There's a lot of co-mingling of data, meaning if you say, hey, how'd your marketing campaign do last month? Most practices will just be able to tell you, well, we got this many new patients and we think this many came from over here and we think this many came from over here, and they really don't know what levers to pull. And so we developed some systems and some software to help us be able to measure not only what's coming from marketing, but how the patient is performing with the doctors, how the treatment coordinators are performing. Are we re-carrying these patients? And again, without commingling the data. So I want to know what's our re-care rate for marketing patients, not for all of our patients, right? And that makes a huge difference.
Okay, so and was any of that related to like HIPAA or privacy or anything, like the fact that you weren't able to get good data?
No, I think what it is that dentistry only got involved in marketing not long ago. If we would have been having this conversation 20 years ago, dentists weren't allowed to market. It's just recently that dentistry really entered into the marketing world. There was all kinds of local regulations against how big your font could be on your business cards, how big your signs could be. And that started to change and really began to shift. And so dentistry is fairly new to marketing. You're in real estate and if you need a software to track things, that software exists. If you go into the auto industry and you look into marketing and tracking, everything's already built in, everything's ready to go. In dentistry, the management system that helps you track everything inside of dentistry and all of your patients really just can't pull data out the way that you need to be able to give you the metrics that you need. So that's something that's crucial to be able to make educated decisions on the next steps of, should I spend money over here? Should I spend money over there? Should I focus more on my phones and get my phone conversion up? All of those things are totally necessary to be able to be successful with marketing and to be able to scale. If you want to open your second, third, fourth, fifth office with confidence, you need to have consistent patient flow, especially if you're doing a de novo. And that's something that we've really honed in on and help our clients to know with confidence what's your cost per lead going to be, what's your cost per acquisition going to be, and we can know those numbers as we walk into the de novo, and we can crank up to 50 to 100 new patients month one.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of people are maybe able to get leads, maybe not very many, but a certain amount, and then they're just dropping the ball when it comes to answering the phone. So would you say like just creating a script is one of the first steps in making sure that there's consistency there and they're not losing so many of those leads?
Absolutely. So scripting is number one, but really scripting by itself it'll always drift back to we've tested this. We've tried to implement scripting and then just kind of leave it there and see how measure conversion and then come back to it and see how it does in 3 to 4 months. And what we noticed is pretty much everybody kind of drifts back to the way they want to do it. So accountability is really the most important part of it. Scripting, you have to have the scripting, but then holding people accountable and giving them a baseline. You have to be able to measure success to be able to hold people accountable to that success. So that's where we come in. That's what we pride ourselves in. So we know what every person's conversion rate is just for marketing. And that's really a key stat. And we were aiming for that 90% conversion on the phones.
Okay. And so then let's talk about leads. What do you guys find to be most effective right now? Like what strategies are you using to get leads in the door? Or I guess I should say leads to call.
Good question. So there's a couple different ways that a patient comes into an office, and understanding that process is crucial to being able to generate a large amounts of new patients. So the first thing someone's going to do is they're going to hop online and they're going to type in the word dentist or filling or crown or whatever they're going to search, and we're going to pop up. Our practice is going to pop up, and we want to have a lot of Google reviews, right? Now what happens a lot of times, this is an easy trap to fall into. If we're both dentists, right? So it's Dr. Austin and Dr. Gary, and I have 100 Google reviews, 5-star, I think I'm doing pretty good. But if you have 1,000, guess who's going to get the bulk of that business that right away. So it's really, really important, and something that we strive for all of our clients. We haven't hit it for everyone, but we're striving for it, is to be the #1 rated dentist on Google. That is crucial. And being
for your
able
area, or what do you mean #1 on Google?
Yeah, just locally in your little corner of your town, right? Where you're going to be popping up. So the average dentist is usually pulling from 3 to 5 miles away. And again, that's different maybe for certain cities and rural areas, but in general. And so just being #1 rated dentist on Google, or at least being in the conversation, right? So that's #1. So that's the first thing that a patient's going to look at. They're going to look at proximity. So being in the right location is really crucial. If you want to be on the way to school, or you want to be on the way to work, something of that nature. And so just being in the right traffic flow is huge. And that's something that we do a lot of research on.
So you actually help with site selection?
I wish we were that advanced. What we do is, if you give us an area, Austin, so if you say, hey, Gary, what do you think about this area? Would you open up a dental office here? We'll look at the competition, and then we'll look at where traffic flow is happening. And then I would say, hey, this is a great location. It's low competition. The dentists that are there don't have a lot of Google reviews. It seems like there's a lot of traffic going from this direction to this direction. It looks good. And so I look at it purely from a marketing standpoint. Now on the flip side, if everybody has 1,000 Google reviews, it's really, really competitive. We could still market there, right? So we have clients that buy sites and ask us, hey, make this happen. And it just costs more money at that point. Now, you have to take, I think you take marketing and you use that in your selection to where you're buying, and you it's part of the equation. It's not the whole equation.
Yeah, 100% agree. The rent that you pay, your site selection should absolutely be factored into your marketing budget somewhat, because some people they'll find a building, it's a third the cost and rent, and so all they're looking at is the numbers, and then they will find out that like, let's just say because rent can only go up so much, right? So paying $3,000 versus paying $10,000 feels like a lot of money because it's triple the amount, but in reality, you're looking at $7,000 a month in difference, right? And that's about the maximum amount. And the question is, can you offset that $7,000 by having like a really, really good location? Like, will you have to spend $7,000 a month less on marketing? And a lot of times, the answer is, yeah, you'll be able to get a lot more patients than that. And so, yeah, we try and do the same thing. We try and help coach people, like, you got to look at all these factors. Rent is important, right? Like, you don't want to pay way above market rent, but how is that going to directly correlate to the new patients that you get? And so, yeah, it's really important. We actually coach people to do retail. A lot of dentists and just healthcare in general, like, they like to do office. It's traditionally how it's been. We really like to coach them in switching from a retail location, and then more specifically, which retail locations, right? And I like that you mentioned a market competitor evaluation, because that's really important. I can't tell you, it doesn't matter what industry it is. I mean, I used to own gyms, and we thought the same thing, is that, hey, we don't have competition, right? Like we're different. Like, yeah, that's not really our competition. We don't really do that. And everybody kind of thinks that to an extent. And so it's like, well, you might have a niche and you might be a little bit different, and that's all very true, and that helps. But at the end of the day, like, with something like dentistry, if you've got one practice for every 500 people, I mean, it's just going to be really, really difficult to make a thriving business.
In certain areas, you'll notice you can have towns where the doctors are much more savvy with their online marketing. And to your point too, your selection of paying, if you're going to pay an extra $2,000 for rent, which, like you said, that's a lot. But you're going to get 40 more new patients a month. That's only $50 a patient. I would take that all day long, right? For just people being able to walk by, compared to putting an office behind a fast food restaurant that nobody's going to see. You're not going to get any walk-ins, and people are going to struggle to find it. And it's not in that normal traffic flow. That's actually one thing that we've seen in the cities, Austin. And I'd be interested to hear if you guys have kind of heard or seen the same thing. Is we're seeing in Seattle, Portland, Denver, New York, Houston, pretty much every major city, LA, every major city center that you can think of. We've seen that dental practices that are set up there have taken a massive hit, because the people who live outside the city that used to commute in are no longer commuting. They're working from home, and they're doing Zoom meetings like we're doing now, right? And so what's happening is you've lost that patient base, and now you have to go build a new patient base. The good news is, and this is what we're seeing, is there's people who still live downtown, and their habits are all being changed as well. So it's almost like you have all brand new move-ins. They're going to a new grocery store. They're going to, the new different coffee shop, and their buying patterns have changed, which actually creates a lot of opportunity for the dentists that are located downtown. I'd be interested to hear if you've seen anything like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I haven't heard it worded that way. And so it just sounds like it'll be a giant rotation of old patients for new patients, which is interesting. Typically we don't work in like super, super urban areas, like right close to the downtown area. A lot of times we're working on the outskirts, like a little bit around the suburbs and that sort of thing. And so in general, it's been hard just because of COVID. All the restrictions, the WHO came out with their guidelines and said that dentistry was like the most dangerous place to go. All this crazy types of stuff. But it seems like a lot of practices are able to recover, to what their kind of revenue pre-COVID, or if they're not 100% there, they're at least getting pretty close.
Yeah. We've noticed, what we've seen is obviously COVID hit. So you had dentistry that's been like this forever, right? And you got the recare patients coming, and you get your new patients in there, and pretty steady. And then all of a sudden COVID hit. So you put to zero. And that means if you were seeing 300 patients a month total, right? Those all didn't recare 6 months out. So that was April, right? And then and it's different in different parts of the country. It might be in March, or it might be a little bit later in other parts of the country. And so what happened is 6 months from April, which would put us in November, October, November, you had those patients weren't recaring. But what happened right after COVID? Remember, business went back up, and everybody had those monster months. So what we're seeing happening is everybody's kind of booking for that monster month from mid-November, December, and then into January. And then guess what's going to happen again? It's going to go back down. So you have, instead of having this very consistent flow like this, you're going to have a spike and then down and then spike and then down. And we're obviously, benefiting from people contacting us saying, hey, help us with our marketing. But a lot of the problems that people are facing are actually internal recare. And that's one of the biggest problems that we're bumping into, and we're doing a lot more internal marketing to help get those recare patients back and get more into that steady flow. And that's what we're aiming for this next year, is to kind of balance that out.
So it sounds like you've gone full circle, because it kind of went to explicitly like internal, emails, into almost focusing on digital marketing and external marketing. And now it's a combination of both those together.
Yeah, exactly. When we work with somebody, we actually have a pretty unique approach. So we have several marketing coaches that we figure out, okay, where's your hole? How can we close that hole? And then how can we hold your team accountable to that hole? So we have an internal marketing coach. They help with reviews. They help with internal patient referrals, external doctor referrals for like ortho and different things like that. And then we have a phone coach, and then we have a treatment presentation coach. We have a social media coach, and we also have a patient flow coach. So we try to hit it from every single angle to close whatever the gap is. And then again, it's really about creating transparency and then consistency through accountability. And that's what's worked really well with us. And the best part, we don't do contracts. So everything that we offer to our clients is month to month. And our company, why, the reason we do what we do is we are passionate about helping people grow and helping practices grow, and really helping group practices put the systems in that they need to be able to expand their business.
No, and Gary, that's great. And I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot, and there's just so many facets to it that you don't know, right? So if people like what they're hearing and they want to get in touch with you, I mean, what's the best way to reach out and make contact?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could give us contact us at SMC National and reach out to us there. Our website has all the information of what we do and how we do it. And we have a lot of free resources as well. If you'd like the phone scripting that we talked about, if you go to call.training, call.training, that has all the scripting that we use for our clients. And also a big question that we get a lot of times, and so I just made some videos about it, is concerning ROI, like how to track ROI, what do I need, what softwares do I need, and all that good stuff. So I created a site with several videos on it. It's a 3-part series. It's roidentist.com, and cool. Those are all free.
I'll grab the links from you, and I'll drop them in the show notes for everybody who's watching.
Awesome.
All right, man. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Austin. You have a great day. Okay.